Hello and welcome to Art Centre Melbourne's Beatboxing Mime workshop with me, Holly Austin. I am the creator, performer behind Dr. Audio's Giant Adventure. It's a choose your own adventure, theatrical, beatboxing filled tale where I play Dr. Audio, who's on a quest to save the city from a giant. That's a very big giant. In the theatre, we often use props or sets to help us tell the audience where we are and what the action is in the story. But in Dr. Audio's Giant Adventure, I don't use any props or any set. So how do I tell the story? Well, I use my voice to make the sound effects of some of the characters, like a cat or a pigeon or even a giant. I also fly on the back of a very large bird. And I use my body to mime the action. So I open windows, I climb stairs, I jump out of buildings, and through these techniques, I help tell the story of the adventure. So today's workshop, you are going to be creating your very own clown character and coming up with a little scene. Shall we get started? So I thought we'd kick off with a quick beatboxing lesson. What is beatboxing? It's basically like having a drum kit in your mouth. Another word they use is vocal percussion. A great way to start learning how to beatbox is by using a phrase, a percussive phrase. Here's one: pizza and cats and baboons and pigs. Give it a go. Beautiful. So now we're going to start repeating the phrase, and this time as we move through repeating the phrase, we need to really pronounce all the P's and the C's, all the consonants in the sentence. That's what starts to emulate the drum sound. So let's try. Pizza and cats and baboons and pigs. Pizza and cats and baboons and pigs. Awesome. It's really important just to keep your lips nice and loose and really, when we say of cats, to really make it click at the back of your soft palate. Okay, let's try again. And this time we're going to slowly start taking away any sense of the word and just only hitting the consonants. So it should sound something like this. Pizza, cats, baboons, pigs, pizza, cats, baboons, pigs. Awesome! Sounding really good. So there's something to really annoy your parents with. Now that our vocal cords are all warmed up, it's time to warm up our bodies. This exercise is called knife and fork. You can play it by yourself or in pairs. The idea is to create physical shapes with our bodies, and just the first thing that comes into your head. There's no right or wrong. Your interpretation is the best way. All right, so first thing I would love you to create is a broom. Great, there's no right or wrong. And we're trying to do this as quickly as possible. A mop. No right or wrong. A unicorn. Great. Now, I'm gonna leave it over to you. Egg. A fried egg, a rotten egg, a racing car driver with a flat tire, great. An American tourist, a basketball shoe, got you there, didn't I? A basketball shoe that has come apart, a octopus, a ogre. Now that we've warmed up our bodies, it's time to learn some mime. So what is mime? Mime is a silent way of performing, telling the story through our bodies and creating through a series of gestures something that's not even there. For instance, I might like to create a wall, or looking over a wall, or running into a wall. Ow. So let's all create a wall. We need nice flat hands, and we're taking it really slow. It's important when we're miming to take our time so the audience can really read the gesture. And now looking over a wall. And we do this by placing our hands on top and moving our shoulders and head above, but keeping that line level. And back down into the wall. And let's just go to an edge now, picking it up and placing it, picking it up, placing it, and making sure our hands are level with each other. One way to do this is line up our thumbs. And now creating a corner. And again, we want to make sure that on our corner, our hands are level with each other to create the illusion that there is an edge. And back. Great. Now let's try creating a cup. So there's a table in front of you. You're picking up the cup off the table. How big is it? And be as clear as you can about how big that cup is. Picking it up, placing it back down. Picking it up, placing it back down. Good. Now decide what's in the cup. Is it a hot liquid? A cold liquid? When you take a sip, how does it change because of the temperature of the liquid in the cup? And what about how much liquid is in the cup? Is it almost empty, so it's much lighter and easier to pick up? Or is it really heavy because it's really full? Play around with the weight, the size and the temperature, because this is going to change how you, the performer, interact with the imaginary object. So we're now going to combine some sound effects with our mime, just as Dr. Audio did by burping and slurping on her milkshake. So I want you to imagine you're relaxed, sipping on your beautiful, delicious milkshake, when a fly comes. Can you make the sound of that fly? It's really important that you track the fly with your eyes so our audience sees the fly in the space like you do. And make it land somewhere before it flies off again. Great. Now I want you to think about making sounds for the flapping when you're trying to shoo it away. So it might look something like this. Awesome. Now this time, it's really important that we make it land somewhere and then take off again and land somewhere else. Stopping and starting the sound and flapping. Are you ready? Good. Maybe you try and get rid of that fly. So what are different ways we can get rid of the fly? Do you have some magic fly spray, fly swat? Do you hit it and in turn hit yourself? React to those things and see if you can create sound for all of those actions. Okay, so now we've combined some sound effects and beatbox skills with our mime. We are going to create our very own scene. First up, I'd love you to decide on a location for this scene. You can choose between a beach, a campsite, or an exam room. Got one? Great. Next up, I want you to think about the sounds that you hear in this location. So if we're at the beach, maybe it's some waves or seagulls. The campsite, maybe there's wildlife, a lone wolf, a kookaburra perhaps. Now I know what you're thinking, an exam room. There's not a lot of sound in an exam room, you're supposed to be quiet. But sometimes it's silence that highlights sound, isn't it? So if there is sound, what can we hear? A pen scratching on someone's desk? The clip-clop of Mrs. Haddon's shoes coming to see that person whispering? Someone shushing? Oh, maybe a clock ticking. Great. So first, to start our scene, we're going to create the soundscape of that environment to let our audience know where we are. So have a little practice of that. Next up, I want you to decide on an action, an activity that you're doing within this environment. If we're at the beach, you might be sunbaking, licking your ice cream, perhaps. A campsite, you could be finding firewood and making a fire. The exam room, maybe you're just wanting to complete that exam. The important thing is I want you to make it important to your character to complete. Good. Now I want you to decide on the time of day. Is it really late at night? Or early in the morning? Or maybe it's the middle of the day, hot. Is there a way that you can physically show us or through your sound effects tell us the time of day? Great. And what about, we mentioned hot, the weather? Is it freezing cold, boiling hot, or somewhere in between? And think about ways you can create and show us this through your physicality or your sound effects. Awesome. Now I mentioned it was really important to your character to complete this activity. And this is a key thing for creating comedy. Often we laugh because a character is trying to do something, to complete something in a scene, and something is stopping them from doing that activity. So I want you to decide on a pest, something that is stopping you from completing that activity. For instance, at the beach, it might be a pesky seagull coming to get those chips. Or at the campsite, maybe it's the fire itself, burning, coming alive, or a hungry wolf. What about the exam room? Someone peeking over their shoulder, wanting to look at your results, your answers, sorry. Got something? Great. Can you make the sound for that pest? And place them in the imaginary space so we know where they are. Great. And now I'm going to leave the rest up to you. Ideally, we want to find a resolution, a resolve to the end of your scene. So we're going to start the scene by creating the soundscape, telling the audience where we are. We're going to then tell them the time of day and the weather, and we're going to get on with our activity, but keep getting interrupted by that pest. Think of 3 different ways that pest might interrupt you from doing your activity and what you do to try and stop them. 3 different things, 3 different ways, and a resolve. Good luck, and I can't wait to see what you come up with. Thanks so much for joining me. Bye-bye.